Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jim Keefe, and I'm the publisher of the Recycling Today Media Group. We've got a fascinating webinar here this afternoon looking at reimagining recycling. And this time, we're going to take a look at where technology is playing an important role on the front end, very front end, the collection side of the recycling industry. We've often talked about what happens post-collection, in post-collection operations, but this time we're going to look at what's going on in collection. So joining us this afternoon, I first want to recognize and thank AMCS, our host, for sponsoring this afternoon's webinar. We've got Curtis Olaf from PSSI, Chris Jackson from PSSI, as well as Jeff Aardsma from AMCS. I'm going to let those gentlemen each take a moment to introduce themselves to help give all of you a perspective about where they're coming from, how they see the industry, and how they fit into mobilizing the solution in the field. Curtis, I'm going to throw it over to you to kick off.
Thank you so much, Jim, and thank you for having us on. My name's Curtis Olaf. I am the CTO for PSSI and some affiliated companies. I have 30 plus years experience in Silicon Valley working as an engineer. I'm not your typical management person. I'm actually a field engineer who helped design chips, systems, networks, and environments. I bring to the table an understanding of data-driven analysis and database operations and bleeding edge technology, which is what drew AMCS to work with us in the future on this project.
Fantastic. Chris?
Thank you, Jim. My name is Chris Jackson. I am the Capacity and Contamination Manager for PSSI. I started in the industry about 15 years ago. I came from the high-tech industry over to the waste industry and started working with Livermore Sanitation about 13 years ago. I actually started before day one with Livermore Sanitation, before we started servicing our customer, bringing it up from the ground up from an empty warehouse to a fully functional hauler servicing the city of Livermore. 2 years ago, I went ahead and transferred over to PSSI to be the Capacity and Contamination Manager, working with the university and our company.
Jeff, if you want to take a minute and introduce yourself as well, thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Curtis and Chris and Recycling Today for hosting the webinar. I'm Jeff Aardsma. I lead market development for AMCS. As a global company, my efforts are focused here on North America and specifically the waste and recycling, or we call the resource management industry, one that I've been working in nearly for 20 years, half of which has been on the technology side. Really excited to be here today and talking with our partners at PSSI about what I think is a really interesting problem, actually one that I've spent a lot of my career digging into and the complexities of it, right? We've got waste that is growing in both volume and complexity, in today's economy and in our industry. And so needing scalable solutions that can really help operators make targeted decisions, long-term planning, and engage more meaningfully and safely with their customers. It's been a bit of a calling for myself, and our partners at PSSI have done a great job of embodying that into their operations. So really excited to dig into that in a little bit more detail today. And back to you, Jim. Thanks again for having us.
Thanks so much. Talk about having a panel of experts. We've got a view from the technology sector, somebody who built the collection company from the ground up, and Jeff, who's been supplying technology solutions to the industry for a long time. Great panel. Thanks again for joining with us this afternoon, guys. I wonder if you could dig into a little bit and begin to share a little bit about, first of all, what is the Vision AI module that AMCS is offering, and how are you using it out in the field to detect overages, account for those things accurately, and how's that working out for you, especially in those real dense routes that you're running?
Jim, Vision AI module is a series of technologies from AMCS, using both their hardware and software to help recognize materials that are being received in a material stream and seeing if there's anything out of the ordinary, anything that's not expected to be there. A perfect example would be you're picking up recycling materials and you're finding organic materials in the recycling. Or you're doing an organics route and you're finding aluminum or paper or other materials inside there. In this dynamic world of regulations we have, especially out here in the Bay Area and in California with all of our environmental codes, we have a simple wrong item in the stream can invalidate an entire load. It can invalidate an entire deposit at a fill or a recycling facility. So you have to try to catch these things early. The problem with trying to do this is seeing it, knowing what's happening and when it's happening. With the combined use of AMCS's technology, such as Vision AI, tablets, and cameras that are satellite GPS equipped, we can get a pretty good idea of what containers belong to where and what streams are coming from where. However, as you mentioned, in dense urban areas, places with high rises, places with poor cellular areas, reception, facilities where you have 20, 30, 40 bins, a shopping mall as an example, large scientific blocks on campuses and so forth, you can have multiple bins. It gets very hard. GPS isn't that precise. So we started working with AMCS and we said, how can we augment this? And we helped to pioneer and develop the use of strategically placed QR codes on the front of the bins. These codes are visible when the truck pulls up. It's visible when the truck is actually lifting the bin through the different angles of cameras that AMCS uses. And it allows us to not only specifically identify the customer, the address, the material type, and using versioning, something that AMCS took our idea and expanded upon, you can start adding in additional information to be picked up and fed back into their products. And we know exactly what's going on. And this has allowed us to start working towards full positive verification in a practical sense for the very first time. Chris, you got anything you want to add on to that?
Yes, I mean, Curtis explained it perfectly. And not only where at the university we service do we have multiple bins in the same location, multiple customers being serviced in the same location. We have many instances of us servicing multiple customers between multi-story buildings where there is no clear line of sight to a satellite. So you cannot get an accurate GPS location. And so the QR code is instrumental in helping us identify the customer and identify the material stream that we are servicing. And of course, when you're not in those conditions and you have a dumpster sitting in the open air, no other dumpsters anywhere close to it, you don't require a QR code whatsoever. The geo tracking of the truck will say this is the location that the dumpster is at, this is the customer that it's assigned to, and this is the commodity that's being serviced, and you do not require that QR code.
So the QR code was developed really as a solution just for those highly dense routes, to give a supplemental way to identify where you are and what you're collecting.
Very much so. The QR code is instrumental in that because GPS, unless you are a military where you can get a GPS coordinate down to inches, is actually good to about 36 feet, sometimes a little bit less. It's problematic when you get into major metropolitan areas or high rises. They'll block satellite
You won't
views.
experience that.
You won't get it. How many times have you been going down the street trying to follow a map in your car or on your phone, and it's way off because it can't see a satellite? With the QR code, we can now identify the exact bin. And we've done it with roll-offs and large-scale bins to lift up. We are now testing putting it even on 96-gallon and 64-gallon, I believe, trash cans, and being able to read it from there as well. That's in testing right now.
Interesting. Jeff, anything you would add to this?
Yeah, it's interesting. You might have a scenario where those high density containers are a small percentage of your route, but really, one of the key points of ROI and value that the Vision AI solution gives is coverage across the entire route, right? So the whole goal here is to identify where non-desirable or non-conformant behavior is happening and have a strategy to influence that behavior, right? As there's upstream impacts to customers around compliance or additional costs, but there's downstream impacts to the operators with regards to acceptance of a load into a recycling facility or increased processing, handling, or transportation costs. So managing, everything, and especially in these highly dense areas, is typically where you could find your highest volume generation, right? So the greatest exposure to that potential non-conformant material getting into a waste stream and impacting you. It's really been a great solution to a challenging problem that helps really increase the impact of the overall solution.
Yeah, fantastic. How are you finding that you're able to take that data and marry it with other data sets that you have within the organization to really help guide you to better business decisions for the organization?
PSSI is actually very lucky in one respect. We're in the heart of Silicon Valley, which means we're in the heart of tech. With that, have started a development project to develop a customer-facing dashboard, okay, using Microsoft BI as the development platform. This is a third-party platform, and we're using it to pull data from a legacy AMCS product called Tower, and we're marrying it with the data from Vision AI to create a user-friendly view for our customer to be able to come in and look at both historical and current data almost in real time, and having the ability to look at it and manipulate it and compare it, contrast it, and see the trends that they need to see in a language they can understand. In the past, the best we could do for them would be to produce a canned report or a possible, custom report with certain columns that they want to see, or import it into Excel, and you send it off to them. You never know if they look at it. 9 times out of 10, they'll look at it for the first month, and then after that, they'll never look at it again. We've all seen that happen. Now it's more of an interactive environment that they can control. They can set up the queries. They can look at it the way they need to look at it, and it allows them to do it with a few simple clicks. This allows us to work more closely with them from an outreach perspective to make better decisions on the level of service. If we're constantly seeing one particular kind of canister being contaminated for some reason coming from one particular building, not saying the engineers will do this all the time, we can actually go to them and say, look, this is what we're seeing. Here's the video evidence. Here's the photo evidence. You can see in the dashboard. We need to make some changes. If we're seeing something that's always overfilled, we can suggest an increase in service, and we can suggest where we can economize in other locations. So this allows for a better control of investment from both their side and from our side.
Chris, is there anything you would add to that?
I would also say it assists on the personnel requirements of a company, where before, in order to get some of this data, and it'd be very generic data in this way, is you would have an outreach person going out there and flipping lids, going to restaurants and whatever it might be, flipping lids and seeing what contamination level you have in there and writing it down and then presenting it. And then you might not flip that lid for another year. And in that time of period, that restaurant or any customer might have gone through personnel changes where they went from a very clean load to a very dirty load. but you won't know that for another year until you flip that lid. With Vision AI and the data we receive from Vision AI, you can almost know instantly that a customer is either overfilling their container or contaminating their container more and more and more, and direct your outreach personnel to go there and to retrain the customer instead of just waiting 1 year from now and you're now consistently getting contaminated loads from them.
Jeff, would you add any perspective on that?
Yeah, having worked in kind of point of collection technologies for a number of years now, I can tell you that the best way to move average performance is to identify the outliers. And in order to identify the outliers, you've got to have that frequency of data collection. But more importantly, as Curtis and Chris have pointed out, you've got to find a way to make your customer your partner in solving the problem. Right. At the end of the day, you're providing a service. You've outlined how they can best utilize that service that you're providing. But if they're consistently out of sync with the standards that you've put forth, and there's their behavior or other activities are presenting a challenge to your operation, you've got to find a way to prioritize that, right? And it's the classic carrot and stick mentality, right? You can provide incentives for the right behavior, or consequences for the undesirable behavior. Having the data to understand, what is the problem that you're dealing with, who's creating that problem, with what frequency and volume, helps you be very targeted. And I think that's just a great demonstration of what Chris and Curtis and and their company have done, leveraging the data and even innovating with it to make it more impactful in allowing their customers to come into the journey and solve the problems with them. So I think it's a great case study there.
So Curtis, you made the point that you're in the heart of Silicon Valley, very technology forward company, and a customer base as well that's more leaning into technology. You're also, of course, in a state where measuring these contamination levels is so critically important, right? So for all of your compliance. Do you think that customers in other parts of the nation who maybe aren't so technology savvy or don't have those really strict tracking requirements would still benefit from this tech platform?
I really do. It's not a case of having the data is not simply for the customer, it's not simply for the state, it's for us. It's critical for our daily operations. In the past, most companies would have a sense of what's going on. This is in their operations daily. It's really a series of hunches, guesses, and loose observations. As Chris pointed out, you flipped a can a year ago. You have an idea that some people are doing these kind of things. What's happened since then? You really don't know. The simplest way I could phrase it is, it's kind of like trying to drive a truck on a dark road with your parking lights only. You can't see very far. You don't know really what's there and what's happening. Now, using Vision AI as a tool, using the cameras, using the GPS coordinates, the QR codes, we can now precisely have photos and video to back up the data. We know where the issues are coming from. We know who are creating the issues. Now we can start making informed decisions. Everything from personnel, as Chris mentioned, to equipment investments. Do we need to expand the MRF? Do we need to increase the number of routes? Do we need to change out the type of bins and canisters we're using to handle this? It allows us to know where more resources are needed and where existing resources can be better utilized. This is going to be critical, not only in my state, but in any state in the future, as more locales are becoming more demanding. They're demanding that we produce more data, demanding that we produce more results in getting rid of contamination, getting rid of the recycling and diversion rates. And frankly, especially in California, as the regulations become more restrictive.
Thanks for that, Curtis. I wonder, Jeff, if you might add anything to that, what you're seeing across the country, because to me, that sounds like a lot of great insight that many operators across the nation need.
Yeah. Yeah, we see it as an extension of investments that are already being made, right? And I'll use a simple example of MRF technology. Actually, I think we've got a question in the chat about the MRF, right? And if you think about the technology that's going into a MRF, it's not only designed to separate expected materials into the different grades and commodities that can then enable it to be sold, but it's also meant to protect from kind of these unknown contaminants that could come in on a truck. We've gone through some exercises where we've quantified, the cost of non-conformant or contamination grade material once it lands on the MRF floor. And if you think about the additional handling, the additional transportation, and ultimate disposal of that material, you could be talking $100 to $200 to $300 a ton, and all of that's eating away from your bottom line. One of the great things about Vision AI is it gives you that insight at the point of collection to understand how do you reduce that contamination, not from going through your MRF, but from ever showing up on the floor in the first place. So we think it's a great way to increase the value of the investments that you're already making. And then as Curtis and Chris have demonstrated, a great way to engage in a deeper way with your customer base, drive value, drive more meaningful conversations, longer term, service relationships, and allow you to expand. Because at the end of the day, it's an enhancement to the service that you provide. And I think Curtis and Chris could say that it's a natural competitive differentiator as well in the way that you can leverage this type of technology. So we do see it as absolutely universal, regardless of the sentiment of customers or the presence or enforcement of regulations.
Great, thanks, Jeff. I wonder, Chris, how you see this Vision AI system evolving with your business over the next 2, 3, 4 years. How do you see that playing out?
Well, for us, being the boots on the ground type of person, it's making it much simpler for us to interact with the customer. The beautiful thing for me with Vision AI is we can go to our customers and we can show them all this data, and the data is wonderful data. How many times your bin is overloaded, how much contamination we are finding in your dumpsters. But the big plus for me in Vision AI is it has a picture. You can show all the data to a customer you want, and it doesn't really get through to them. But now you're showing them a picture with every dumpster that's been contaminated, with every dumpster that's overloaded, and they can now see it and really have a concept of what's going on. And if you take that through all the customers in municipality and be able to get that many customers realizing what is happening and reducing the amount of contamination in their streams, that could be a real savings for the customer, for the hauler, and your cost to actually take the material to a MRF or to a composting facility, where they are now more and more charging you more money dependent upon how much contamination you have in that stream, and sometimes rejecting a load coming to their facility. So I see it as a great benefit from the hauler's standpoint of view.
The other thing I would add on top of that is this will allow us as a hauler to be more agile, to make quicker decisions, because we can actually see where issues are starting to pile up, where issues are starting to occur. And almost in real time, we can now make changes. We can add to a route, split a route into multiple trucks, allowing it to shift things around to get a better outcome at less cost for us, higher profit. That's really a driving factor. These are things we could never have done without having the data and without having the visual evidence to go along with it.
Got it. Thanks, Curtis. Could I ask a clarifying question? We actually had a question come in from the audience that I wanted to jump back to and ask you about, Curtis. The question was, how does the QR code see that there is a non-conforming item in the bin? So I think there was some confusion on what that was. So I just was hoping you could clarify that for.
Yeah, the QR code has nothing to do with identifying what's in the bin other than we can actually encode multiple sets of data in the QR code. So the QR codes, for example, you can have on the front of the bin, can have the customer name, address, billing information, all of it coded in, as well as the material type. So that when the truck goes and lifts it up and it goes and dumps the bin, it reads that material type and says, this is recycling material, paper recycling, as an example. The moment it does, it goes into Vision AI. Vision AI now knows from that QR code, this is supposed to be paper recycling. Now it can identify anything in the stream that doesn't match.
Thanks for that clarification. And then I'm gonna ask one other clarifying question that also came in from the audience. And and the question was, do you do all of these measurements with sensors inside the trucks? I know the answer, but I'm gonna let you field that if you could, Curtis.
The way we're actually working right now is we're currently testing out and working on scale sensors on the actual lift arms of the vehicle to get weights and tonnages. Then we are actually using high definition cameras that are facing into the actual bin of the truck as the material falls in, and using high speed film photography. They actually look frame by frame in a film that's recorded on the camera. It does pattern recognition. AI, everybody loves to say, is self-learning and aware. Not really. It's kind of like working with a 2-year-old. You show them a block and you say it's a cube. You show them a triangle, you say it's a pyramid. Now you show them a circle. It's neither a block or a pyramid. What is it? They have to try to differentiate and figure this out. AI is no different. It learns. So from a standpoint of a technology up front, Chris and I and our teams had to front end load images in with AMCS to get them to see and recognize the different materials so that it could learn and start to process. And from there, it extrapolates future items. Chris?
Yeah, I wonder if Chris would add anything to that. Thanks.
Well, I think it's also important to let everybody know that PSSI was an alpha tester for this technology. So we have been the ones actually training Vision AI to say, this is a circle, this is a square, this is a triangle. And when we started this training, we only had 5 items that were recognized as contamination items to look at. Now we're well over 30 items. And so, other customers would have to go through what we have already gone through because we understood we were going to be training it, and we accepted this this challenge. And it's been a fun challenge, and it's been it's worked very well for us.
Jeff, is there anything you add, or we can move forward? I was going
Yeah.
to go on to the education piece.
Yeah, no, I think just to close out on that, this is the type of thing that can only be developed, kind of in the field, collaborating with, real world problems, challenges, questions, interacting with customers. So echoing Chris's sentiment, it's been fun working with PSSI and watching it evolve based on how it's really going to be used, right? Not in a lab, but actually out in the field with real feedback.
Yeah, literally on the street, right?
Yep.
So I wonder what you're learning at PSSI about providing this real-time data to your customers, how that's enhancing the trust, strengthening those relationships, and then downstream, how might that data also be being used to help train, to help educate the community on best use applications and contamination? I'll
Well,
shoot that to you, Chris. Yeah, thanks.
yes, I would say that we've built a lot of trust with our customers now. And even though we work for a university, every building, every department is a customer. You're not dealing with the university as a whole. You're dealing with individual customers, cafeterias, department heads, the Office of Sustainability. And Vision AI has allowed us to build the trust. And I'm going to come back to what I said earlier. It's great to be able to show the people data. You had this many overloaded bins, you had this much contamination, and they kind of hum and haw sometimes, and sometimes they just really don't believe you. But now we can actually show them the picture. You had 8 overloaded bins this month. Here are 8 pictures. You had X amount of contamination in 6 of your loads, of your recycle loads. Here are the pictures. You had 2 organic dumpsters that had contamination in them. Here are the pictures. That builds a lot of trust. And it might almost sound like can kind of be confrontational at times. Well, God, you're showing me pictures and all this, but it actually builds a lot of trust. And now they understand what the data actually means. And that is it's so important, understanding what the data means. And then they can use that to go ahead and retrain kitchen staff, retrain janitors, or request us to send out our outreach personnel to conduct training ourselves. So for us, it's been an absolute huge benefit. It has stopped a lot of confrontations from happening. And I can even extrapolate that out to if I were still working at LSI, working for a city, and I was the outreach manager there. Many times when we were doing lid flipping, we would have confrontations with a outreach personnel. Maybe it's still dark outside. They're going out there to flip a lid. And there are people in the enclosure, maybe sleeping in the enclosure, maybe doing other things in the enclosure. We've had people sleeping in dumpsters before. And that assists us in the safety of our personnel, where we don't have to do that anymore. We can just look at a picture and understand what is going on. So for us, it's been an absolute huge benefit.
I wonder, Curtis, if you would add anything to that in terms of the customer relationship and the community education components you're seeing.
Extending on to what and expanding what Chris said, the biggest thing I see from it is it shows the customer we're not here trying to nickel and dime you. There are reasons why you're seeing these things. There are reasons why you're seeing charges. There are reasons why we're showing you this data. It's here. It allows them to take more ownership of the situation. They are able to now make a decision. Should I increase my service levels? Should I decrease my service levels based on this? Should I try to secure things better because somebody's obviously overloading my bin and trying to do this? Do I need to go talk to my people and tell them, hey, you need to break the boxes down. We need to put more into the container and save space. Otherwise, it's going to cost more money. It allows them to make the economic decisions they need to make, and it allows us to control the situation and to have a good back and forth with the customer going forward.
Jeff, I wonder if there's anything you would add to this in terms of how AMCS is taking all of the experience they're gaining from this project and how it might be helping some of your other customers as well.
Yeah. Well, so certainly, as Chris and Curtis, mentioned, there's a number of actions that you would take from, say, identified events like contamination or overage. And, it all depends on the relationship with the customer, who the customer is, the type of services and material they're generating, right? Like there's endless factors to that. One of the things that's really interesting for AMCS is to understand the commonality of how those downstream actions would be taken, because we're looking to automate them, right? Really automate the obvious ones and then continue to work on the ones that would need a human to look at it and make a decision. For the industry, and I come from a sales background inside the industry when I was not on the technology side. This type of information about your customers' behavior, what they're generating, what they're struggling with, how maybe their business is changing, is absolute gold from an account management, a growth perspective. It's a reason to have a conversation. It's a reason to build trust. as Chris and Curtis have said, and really, build those long-term relationships that grow over time and don't get commoditized. So we're looking at it from both angles, right? We want to be able to stabilize and optimize today's operation by handling the things that are outside of the expected and do that through AI and automation. Then we want to continue to collaborate and innovate with our customers on, how can this better build those valuable customer relationships, help you grow, help you gain market share, help you break into new lines of business that you can identify because of this data. So it really works on both ends there. Chris and Curtis have really exhibited what it means to be a great partner. That's what we're always looking for in the market.
I wonder what you all might offer as advice for other operators across the country who are kind of trying to operationalize sustainability. It's one of these things that we hear a lot about: circularity, sustainability. How do we make this cost effective for our customers to participate? And I wonder what you would share about how the Vision AI system has helped you um, realize that and bring that to your customers more effectively.
In today's real world economic environments, we really have to make decisions using all available information we can get, all the data, all the problems, all the issues. We need to know what's going on. The days of being able to have a hunch or being able to think, oh, this is the way it's been done for the last 20 years, those days are gone. We have to look going forward and do this. Vision AI gives us another 10,000 foot overview. It allows us to see the problems. It allows us to be more agile in making decisions on resources. It allows us to redirect equipment as needed, redirect personnel as needed. It allows us to focus our outreach personnel, which can be a limiting factor for a lot of companies. I know that across the country, not everybody has as many outreach people as we do in California, where it's a little bit more popular at the university level. And having the ability to use those people more effectively, that's a major change for us. It allows us to communicate with our customers directly, get them engaged, get them to be partially responsible for their actions and to understand where we're coming from and to work with us to get better outcomes. And that would drive us to make better decisions on what we need to do. Chris?
And I would say for, we would consider ourselves to be a smaller hauler, but for a lot of the haulers out there who these are not major concerns for them, maybe they don't have the regulations that we have to meet in California. They're going to be going there sooner or later. It is going to happen. It is coming. And there's a lot of cost benefit to doing it now instead of waiting later. You can wait till later and have to implement all this very quickly and go through all the headaches of that. Or you can start implementing it now and actually have cost benefits behind it by being able to work with your customers, maybe not have as much outreach personnel if you have a lot of outreach personnel, not having people in the field with fuel costs and all that. So there are benefits to going to it right now, even if you don't have those regulations you have to meet at this minute.
I think that's one of the things I'm hearing is that, when you talk about recyclables collection or organics collection, contamination that reaches the plant is very expensive. And if you can help to mitigate that by targeting your education to where your contamination is coming from, that gives you a unique advantage to drive down costs. I don't think it takes regulation or reporting requirements to see the value that you might be able to capture there in your operations. Jeff, you were going to add something, I think.
Yeah, no, I think we're about halfway through the calendar year. Summer is upon us. Everybody's taking stock of, what is your second half strategy if you're on a calendar fiscal. It's also not to be lost that budgeting season is right around the corner. So I think we're at an interesting kind of time in the year to take stock on where are costs not meeting your expectations, right? You're incurring higher costs. Where are your growth goals? Maybe you had like strong organic growth goals, in going into the year, and you're looking at ways to boost those. This is not just a way to, charge customers fees and kind of interact in that way. It's a better way to plan strategically how you're going to control the outcomes of your business by leveraging what you already have access to, right? And increasing your visibility to the specific actions and investments that you can take inside your organization that will help you reach your goals faster, or exceed your goals. Is great. So we encourage kind of everyone to look at this through different lenses, as it applies to their business. There's a lot of different ways to come at this. We've covered a lot of the institutional customer relationships, municipal, kind of regulatory focused. But everybody who's investing in a MRF or a organics recycling facility, or has strong organic growth goals, or retention goals, these are all great reasons to look at technology like this to empower the rest of your organization to perform better.
It also allows us to avoid being confrontational with the client by working with them and having them take ownership.
Yeah, that's a great point, Curtis. We've had some great questions come in from the audience. So I would encourage the audience, if you've got questions, send them through. We will try to get to those for you. We had one come in that just had some questions about what does the hardware look like on the physical truck? How much hardware is required? Is it expensive to install? Are there ongoing monthly fees when you're using the service? I wonder if between Curtis and Jeff or Chris, if you want to take that on a little bit.
Actually, Chris, you've done most of the installations with it. I can give you the basic understanding. We worked with AMCS to develop a DVR. Their initial one was a 4G LTE DVR system, which promptly came out and did not work in our area because heart of Silicon Valley, we'd already migrated over to 5G. So we had to work with AMCS to completely develop a whole new DVR, digital video recorder, that connects to multiple cameras. And we've gone through multiple series of cameras. We've all seen the cameras inside the cab looking out the front window. And we found those didn't work very well and had a problem with the windshield wiper, misidentifying issues, to where we've now come up with a camera with AMCS's team that they actually have that's suction mounted to the window. Kind of looks like the camera you have on most modern cars, and it gets a much better picture reading. And then we have other cameras throughout the rest of the vehicle picking up things from the side loads and inside the bin. Chris?
Yes, and then there's also the hopper camera. We tried different placements of the hopper camera, and we have different style front end loader trucks. And we had a couple cameras that were damaged. We have some very, very old dumpsters here that are taller than me. I've never seen them anywhere else but here. We also have a lot of counterbalance dumpsters here that are a little bit wider than your regular dumpster, and so they cause some damage to the cameras. So AMCS developed an enclosure to protect these cameras, and then we also did different placements to get the best pictures, videos of the contaminants, pardon me, the materials being dropped into the hopper of the truck. We also have lighting, so it lights up the inside of the hopper of the truck so the cameras can see the materials much more clearly.
We also have taken an expansion on Chris, worked with AMCS and have actually developed, and they've mounted infrared lights to the outside of the vehicle so that when a truck is picking up a bin or something outside at night, we're not shining a floodlight into a house, an office, a building, or whatever. Infrared, completely invisible. The camera, bright as day. The other thing we've also worked with them on is now lately has been working on the scales, getting those on the front arms of the vehicle so we can actually pick up. And we're getting it down to where we can even pick up in it's not 100% yet, We're still fine tuning it, but they're getting to where they can pick up a 96-gallon container and actually pull a weight from it and being able to do it. So it's not only front loads, it's not only the big, 3 cubic yard bins, it can get down to the street level. The technology's not quite there yet. We're working on it. We are an alpha site, but we're starting to fine tune it to get there.
We
I
had a
think
question.
for the
Go ahead, Jeff.
audience there, Jim, so AMCS both provides hardware. We provide that hardware as a service model as well on a monthly cost if a capital expenditure is not in line. We also recognize that many operators in North America already have camera systems from other companies installed on their vehicles. And so we do have ways that we can operate with, that we can bring in the data feeds and the video feeds with the metadata from third-party camera systems and provide the same Vision AI service. So we can both provide the hardware as well as be hardware agnostic if you already have hardware installed in your trucks.
And Jim, for those people that are thinking, well, we may not be able to get a good view of the camera position inside the hopper, there could be obstacles. You have to understand the cameras are giving a wide angle view. What AMCS does very well on the back end is they produce a digital mask in the image. They basically wipe out an area for the Vision AI's brain to look at and say, ignore this area, everything else look at in detail, so that it can be shrunk down to just the size of your hopper, ignoring things like the side of the container, arms that are flapping back and forth, lids that fall in, those kind of things, to try to clean up the image as best as possible.
Well, that's great. We had a question come through wondering whether you can change the parameters so that you can measure contamination based upon a municipality's program and what is included in their program or not included in their program. Is that within scope?
Well, using the API. What was that, Chris?
I said I can answer that to a point. I know Jeff might be the better person to answer it, but you have over 30 materials right now that can and cannot be contaminated. So these, let's just say 30 materials that are for garbage, single stream recycling, and organics. And you say this item is a contaminant for organics and recycling, but it's good for trash. It's okay for trash. And then another, like a brown bag with, you don't want that in the trash, you don't want that in the organics, but you want that in the recycling. So you have 30 items, 30 plus items that you say, it's good in this material stream, it's bad in this material stream, and you assign it yourself. So different municipalities, you might have black hard plastic that this city can recycle, but this city cannot recycle. It's how you assign it.
You also give it a weight. So you can say, for example, the brown paper bag is considered a contaminant in organics, but it's such a low level because it is technically organic material being paper that it's a 2 instead of a 8, as an example. And the system will say, look, you've got something in here, but it's acceptable. So you have a degree of control in that. And to answer your question, as for matching to what the city needs to see, once the data is in Vision AI, you do have access to it through the API, the Advanced Programming Interface. This gives you the ability to pull the data out, manipulate it, look at it. I mean, this is what we're using to do our dashboard for our customer. You can do the same thing and have it developed for a municipality and have it generate the information they need directly.
Yeah, nothing further to add from the guys there. Yeah, you described it well.
I want to pull one question out for a point of clarity to let you address this, Chris. We had one of the audience ask about bagged items, and aren't many items bagged? How can the camera see see through a bag? I know we'll let you address that real quick.
Yeah, the answer is simple. I don't know of any technology short of military that can look inside of a bag. So we are looking at what the camera can actually see. From time to time, if it is a clear plastic bag and it's obviously, something in there is dark, it might catch that. But besides that, it's only what you can see with basically the naked eye.
Right. Somebody also asked if the camera's sensitive enough to be able to detect or see, for example, on a clamshell, food contamination that's getting in.
While the cameras that are using are very high def, there's issues with lighting. So that's why you have to have the lighting inside to be able to pull up and to look at it. And it's going to, in reality, it's not going to be any more precise than a sorter is inside of a MRF building when it's running down a conveyor belt. Depending on how the item's positioned, depending on it, you may not see the contamination, you may not. So it tries to base it based on the object itself. If you're looking at a organic stream and you suddenly see a styrofoam container, that's a contaminant. It's going to find it. Even though it's got food stained on it, the styrofoam is what rules it out. Those are the kind of things you can put a weight on. And that's where the weighting process comes in.
Yeah, thanks, Curtis. Jeff, I wonder if you could address the ability for the AMCS system to integrate with existing truck cameras.
Yeah, so we've built through our IoT layer the ability to digest video and metadata streams from a number of providers. Obviously, our hardware and camera systems are one of those inputs, but it's one of the ways that we've made this solution available. Recognizing that a lot of our customers, our prospective customers, would likely already have systems in place for safety or other reasons. We can leverage those video feeds, as they are already. To Curtis and Chris's point, there's always some tweaks if you're looking at something that was installed for safety and looking to use it for a different application. But access to the data is really what we need to get started on those discussions. So happy to speak to anyone that's got that particular scenario and is interested in the solution.
One other question that came through that I want to address real quickly is the ability of the system to read CPU or UPC codes. Again, I think I know the answer to this, but can the system read UPC codes?
I assume you mean a standard barcode on looking at an object.
That's what they're asking. Yeah.
The reading of a barcode is problematic at a distance. Primarily, if you look at a barcode, which is very linear, very straightforward, we're all familiar looking at it. The problem is, how do you read it from which angle? If you turn it slightly to the side and everything, you can't get a good read. Good example, take your cell phone, log into any grocery store app you've got, go to the grocery store and try to read the barcode off a can of something. That slight curvature makes it almost impossible to read it. Reading it inside of the bin, not really. The QR code, like you look at the screen that's being shared with us right now, has something to fix that. QR codes have what they call anchor points. There are 3 of them. That actually tells the reader what orientation the actual code is being viewed at, which then allows it to read the code off of it. You don't have that in a barcode. So with items falling into the hopper, you're not going to be able to read a barcode, at least not yet. You would also have to have a very, very high resolution camera trying to do it. And I don't really see the investment on that part. QR codes on the bins, as an example, Chris, our QR code is what, 8 by 8, 8 inches by 8 inches?
I have different size, anything from 9 by 9 to 7 by 7.
So that's a relatively large code, but we have that on the front of the bin. And with that, we're actually able to pick up the QR code with Vision's decoder at distances of 20 and 30 feet as the truck is pulling up to the bin in the right lighting conditions.
We're coming to the end of our time. I want to mention to the audience that there have been several questions about resources from AMCS to tell you more about this system. That's the purpose of the QR codes that you're seeing right now. You can access lots of additional information right there, as well as get in touch with the team at AMCS to learn more. I did have a question about the QR codes come through, which was, does it allow you to measure participation rates? So can you measure the participation rate on a route since you're looking at each QR code as you go along?
That's an interesting question.
So you haven't done it, but I bet you could based on some of the other things you've done.
Well, yeah, you've got positive verification. You'll know that a bin's been lifted. You'll know that it's been done. You'll know that the material types. The QR code in question is unique for AMCS. They developed something which they refer to as versioning. And that is, you can put a QR code out. You can call it V1, version 1. And it just has the customer, billing address, location. Then you can come up with V2, has the same first 3 entries, but now adds in material type and route day for pickup. And then V3, you can expand upon it. So you could have QR codes that pick up for certain customers. In theory, thinking outside the box, you could embed a code into it that says Project Alpha, or whatever you want to call this participation project, and you'll know if that particular thing has been done based on the fact that it's been read by the system.
Yeah, another challenge for your programmers, Jeff. We're reaching the end of our time. I want to give both Curtis and Chris a minute to talk about where PSSI has really captured the greatest value since starting this project. You both mentioned you're an alpha site, so you're at the front end of using this kind of tech. Where are you really capturing the most value?
If I was to say anything, it's expanding on the trust with our customer, getting them to understand, giving us the ability to educate and work with them as a team. We're no longer the foe. We're no longer the people that are giving them a bill and doing this. We're actually able to work as a team and make it better for them and for us. Chris?
What would you add, Chris?
Absolutely what Curtis said, the trust with the customer, the ability to focus resources where the resources need to be focused instead of just, the shotgun approach and trying to find something that's wrong or right. But I mean, for me, being boots on the ground again, is when we started seeing these pictures and getting this information from Vision AI, we were very shocked at how many locations had loaded containers and where they were located at. And same thing with contamination. We had a lot of information that surprised us, and now we're able to put that in context and set our resources where they need to be applied to.
Jeff, a closing question for you is, what type of companies do you think are going to see the greatest benefit and value from this Vision AI system? There's a suggestion that it's just for big companies, but I don't think that's the case. I'd like you to maybe share what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think the challenges that the technology addresses, apply regardless of scale. The smaller operators are resource constrained to be able to get these types of insights, right? You're really heads down and taking care of your customers and running your operation. And so getting, information from the field to improve your operation is difficult. I can tell you that rejected loads from a MRF, especially like a third-party MRF, can have a huge impact on your bottom line, regardless of the size of your company. So that's very common, use case, or, customers who are, maybe not adhering to the capacity limitations of the services they've subscribed to. right? And impacting your driver safety and the efficiency of your routes with overages. We've found that the ROI model really works regardless of the scale that you're applying it. So if you're looking at, a fleet of 5 trucks or 500, it really does make sense to look at. Again, it's coming down to the goals you're trying to achieve, and how you're looking to enable your particular organization and your customers, to be better partners.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. With that, we have reached the end of our time, so I want to take a moment and thank AMCS for sponsoring today's webinar. Very informative conversation. I want to thank Curtis, Chris, and Jeff for participating in the discussion this afternoon. Thanks so much, everyone. And I want to also take a moment to thank our audience for participating, for being here, for the great questions. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you found this useful. Again, please reach out to the team at AMCS if you'd like to learn more about this technology platform. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.